Hey guys, welcome back. Today I wanted to touch on a topic we haven't yet talked about on this channel. And as many of you know, this channel isn't only about identifying good investment opportunities within the crypto space. It's also focused on the intersection of crypto and traditional real world finance, two areas in which I only see gaining more synergy as we go forward. Now, we're in somewhat of a unique, or at least an interesting macroeconomic climate right now. We've talked a little bit about various financial institutions, investment managers, hedge fund managers, like BlackRock, for instance, who are looking for more creative ways to get involved in crypto, having access to different various investment channels that they otherwise weren't willing to invest in or didn't really have the opportunity to. A lot of this stems from being creative with the rules and regulations coming from the SEC, but otherwise it's a situation where we could be on the precipice of some major influx of revenue coming from the traditional finance space. But also right now, we have inflation at an all-time high, something that I believe will only continue to grow, certainly over the next year or so. And it doesn't really matter where you are in the world. Inflation seems to be a hot topic right now and something that everyone, unfortunately, is suffering from. Within the US, for instance, we have also a very unique situation where we have the US dollar seeming to not only gain or rather lose value from the inflation that seems to be going on right now from the Fed, but also we have pressure from the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and a handful of other nations who are actively looking to dethrone the US dollar as the global reserve currency. All of these factors playing into really a devaluation, specifically within the US dollar, but also on from that, looking at kind of various trade agreements and how the US has historically, certainly in our lifetime, kind of dictated and guided the world economy, we could be seeing somewhat of an upheaval in this, which again, could be somewhat of a double-edged sword. We could be seeing a lot more power being granted to crypto just because of the tokenomics involved, the better economic system, a more modernized version of the traditional finance vehicles that we've, been playing by over the last, generation. And so we could be looking at a situation where crypto is receiving a lot of that power, a lot of that value, and financial institutions really have no option but to start adopting these things. Now, again, the other side of that equation is that we're looking at a lot of those, centralized digital currencies, which come with all sorts of issues that we can go into on another video. But essentially ahead, my point is that we are looking at somewhat of a tumultuous couple of months to years. This bull market, and I know everyone says this every single bull cycle, and to some extent it's true. There are always going to be unique factors playing into these cycles. Right now, we have a number of these unique factors at play. And so it's very, very important that we know how to get our ducks in a row in advance of that. Now, for a lot of us, certainly with this channel and the various, projects that we are involved in or plan to be involved in, we've talked about the opportunity at hand. Whether we are in a situation where we are in the end of the bear cycle, beginning of the bull cycle, or we're still a lot more bearish than bullish right now. Regardless of all of this stuff, when taking a step back and analyzing the likely trajectory of crypto in general, and certainly the projects like Pulse, PulseX, Hex that we're involved in, we would anticipate that our bags are going to be significantly increased by the time that bullish season comes around. We've talked about the importance of strengthening our bags right now. So hopefully you have continued to dollar cost average in where you can, even if that is putting aside USDC or USDT, for instance, a stable coin, to make sure that you have dry powder to put to action when pulsechain or pulsex or any number of projects that we may be involved in come to fruition. Now, it's very, very easy to put yourself in a mindset where you're not truly accepting of the amount of value, the amount of, I guess, an increase in our, I guess, net worth. What that can possibly mean. I've talked to numerous friends of mine, numerous people within my network who, previous to making some real giant gains within the crypto space, really had trouble envisioning that. And then as such, as soon as they were in a situation where they had that money, They had that value. Their net worth kind of went through the roof, as typically tends to happen with crypto when you do make those solid investments. Of course, it takes patience and conviction. You have to make sure you're getting involved in the right vehicles to achieve that. But assuming that takes place, your mindset on money is very much going to change. And what I want to focus on is making sure that when that does happen, hopefully it's an inevitable situation for a lot of us who have been through various cycles. 24 months, we really want to make improvement in our life that we really want to see. Now, the reason I brought up this unique economic climate or these interesting times that we have going on right now is to really emphasize the importance of protection. We want to make sure that we are diversifying our life's finances in all the right way. And what does that mean in the crypto world? Well, right now, being able, for instance, to transfer your crypto into fiat currency even seems to come with a lot of issues still. A lot of people out there are still relying solely on some centralized exchanges, like a Binance or a Coinbase, for instance, that, yes, that is a means of transferring your crypto to fiat currency, but it's just one option to do that. And there are certainly some better or varied options out there that are going to bring a lot more facilitation to your plan going forward and also offer you a lot more protection as well. Now, these are all topics I hope to cover in a lot more detail over the next couple of videos. However, what I'll share with you today is definitely a plan and something that I've learned the hard way over the years that hopefully we can get a head start on in advance of seeing some of the gains and being able to really maximize how we exit some of those positions. Now, the first thing I'm going to touch on is setting up some offshore banking opportunities. To a lot of you, this may seem like somewhat of a taboo subject, but let me tell you, anyone involved in finance in any kind of shape or form, who certainly the ones who seem to be making, a lot of money per year, and that's a relative figure. Um, a lot of folks in that realm have long valued the importance of diversifying where your money is placed. Now, this means setting up either personal or corporate accounts in offshore locations that protect you, against the Fed, protects you against any opportunity that the government sees to seize your funds, to delay any kind of money that's rightfully yours, that should be yours. There's a lot of control elements at play that sometimes aren't fair to the little guy. And so there isn't such a huge roadblock nowadays to setting up some offshore structures that allow you access to your money outside of the US in particular, certainly whatever country you're in, outside of that geosphere, so that you're able to diversify and protect yourself. Now, for instance, if you're in the US, we have some options here that are fairly easy to get involved in. For instance, we have a lot of banks in Panama that are open to the US. We have banks in the Caribbean. We have banks pretty much all over that we're able to make contact with, engage with, and open an account, even if it's a personal account. Now, there's nothing here in terms of tax evasion. There's nothing here in terms of any kind of shady activity. This is just par for the course in order to protect your own portfolio. You're still paying taxes in your relevant country. You're still reporting a lot of this income. However, you are maintaining control. Again, something that Richard Harder said from time and time again, in terms of not your coins, or sorry, not your keys, not your coins. This is following the same principles. This is making sure that you are not hedged too far in any one direction, any one geolocation, so that worst comes to worst, you always have opportunity to take your funds or control your funds because you're positioned in many different markets. Now, a couple of banks that I've recently been doing some research into that seem to be good opportunities would be something like an FV bank within the US, which will allow you to interact with them in a very crypto heavy way. They operate right now primarily in stable coins. I believe USDC is one that they focus on. And it doesn't matter whether you're putting in USDC or USDT, can't remember which one it is, or USD, for instance, your bank account will reflect both balances. They have some great agreements in place that mean that you're able to send your stable coin directly to that account. You're able to cash it out in actual US dollars or pull from that account in US dollars to pay for things. The climate is changing. No longer do we have to get very, very creative about the different ways we do this. The financial institutions, the banks who are going to be front running a lot of this easy crypto to fiat currency transfer are going to be leading the charge and are going to be kind of mopping up, I think, in the next couple of years. We'll see more and more financial institutions doing this. Now, obviously, something, if you're based in the US, an FE bank doesn't tick that offshore box, but it may also be a good opportunity to set a facilitator up outside of your exchanges in order to be able to make those quick transfers. Now, Tower Bank is another one in Panama that I have done some research into and actually looks very good as well. For a 2% charge, they will essentially do the same thing. You can have even a soft token. You can set up your own account to go from a crypto address of your choice. It doesn't have to be an exchange. It can be from a MetaMask. It can be from any private wallet that you hold. But essentially, having something like a Panama, and very few of us live in Panama, unless you're Randy Hilarski, for instance, who is based there, of course, but something like a Panama that offers you that protection. It's a relatively easy structure to set up, both corporate and personal, and really offering you that opportunity to not only be able to have that freedom of transfer in between crypto and fiat currency with a relatively small charge right now, to also setting up a protective nature. So your money, your funds are outside of your existing jurisdiction. And there are a lot more banks, there are a lot more areas that we can perhaps focus on in future videos. But the point I'm drilling home here is you don't want to be caught with your pants down in a year, in 2 years, when you're looking to bring some profits out, maybe even before that. And you are stuck in a situation where your exchange of choice, the Fed, whatever it may be, they are all controlling things in a way that either slows down that process a great deal or frankly doesn't let you do it. Having those accounts, having those structures and pathways set up way in advance is always going to be more beneficial to you and takes the stress off those environments when you reach a point where you have big fat bags within your wallet, but no real way of turning that into any kind of real world finance. You want to buy a car, you want to buy a house, you're going to need, unfortunately, at this point, at least in most jurisdictions or most areas, to be able to show that balance in fiat. Now, I mean, this is huge. Of course, going forward as well, there are other ways to protect yourself. There are a lot of channels out there, especially that focus purely on that kind of global mentality where you're putting yourself in a situation where you have backup citizenships, backup visas. You want to make sure that the jurisdiction you're in isn't necessarily the only one you're in. There are certain things like golden visas, citizenship by investment opportunities, lots of which, unfortunately, do require money. Now, this may be something of a counting your chickens before they hatch situation for a lot of us, because I understand that most people out there simply don't have the funds to be able to put it to work in that way right now. But part of the journey here, part of the whole situation where we're setting up our positions right now to experience those massive gains, hopefully, come again the next 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, when the bull cycle comes through. For those of us who have the patience and conviction that we've talked about, who are involved in the projects and the various realms of crypto, that we really have done our research, we see the fundamental value there. They have that foundation in place, and we truly believe that it's going to be a real winner going forward. The last thing you want to do is be in a situation where you are receiving a much bigger return than you probably thought or anticipated, because you've not really been in a situation to really absorb it, and then not know what to do, and then hold yourself out for all kinds of risk when it comes to turning that into fiat, or being in a situation where you're under the control of one jurisdiction or another. I know I'm being a bit rambly right now, but this is definitely something that everyone wants to think about. Now, we're going to be touching as we go forward in some of those offshore opportunities, perhaps different ways that we can structure our entities so that we're a bit more crypto friendly. Now, this is always an evolving format. This is a little bit of science involved in this. And often, I would also, at that point, when you think you can afford it, which may be sooner than you think, you want to make sure that you're having professional help with all of this. I am not a financial advisor. I'm not a lawyer. I am simply giving you some things to think about right now, things that have helped me over the years and many of my contacts and friends. And I just don't want everyone in this community who is a big believer in a lot of the projects that they're involved in and being caught in a situation where you've crossed the first bridge, step one, seeing that return, certainly virtually in your wallets, but then not knowing what to do with it, not knowing how to structure yourself going forward. And before you know it, you've been taxed through the hilt, you've spent all your money away, and you're back to square one. Making that initial amount is just step one. Hopefully, we see a lot more investment opportunities throughout this crypto space that we could capitalize a lot more so. But for those inevitable situations where we're going to need to transfer crypto into fiat and invest through other channels, maybe even real estate. We can talk about the market too. While we're in a bit of a bubble right now, I do see going forward that as the importance on crypto grows, as it always does during these cycles for various reasons, the real estate market will be dipping. And that may be a good investment opportunity too. Of course, you want to be able to put that money that you've earned through your crypto investments to good use in those channels as well. And that's just one of many. But it's definitely something to bear in mind. It's certainly something that I know a lot of you probably are worried about or stressed about. Maybe some of you are not even thinking about that until you have that money. That's a big mistake. Making sure that you're able to set up those situations in advance is going to be key, because sometimes when seeing certain returns and opportunities that we are hopefully afforded through some of the good decisions and positioning that's going on right now in our lives, we want to make sure that we're not held up. We want to act in the moment and often strike while the iron's hot. We've all been in situations where investment opportunities have come up, and regardless of how small or even just opportunities, trips, and it requires revenue, money in the moment, and not necessarily, giving us the leeway to wait a couple of weeks, months. I've heard people waiting for 6 to 7 months in order to get money out of their Coinbase account, for instance, purely because, or their banking institution, just because they're not yet purely accustomed to, crypto transactions. Right now, we want to be protecting ourselves geographically. We also want to be making sure that we're setting up trusted relationships with entities like new crypto-friendly banks that I say are going to be leading the charge over the next couple of years. Getting those relationships in place so that there's no surprises going forward. I hope this has helped. Please do subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. I know I've been a bit inconsistent with my videos of late. However, there's really been not too much to talk about. I am not a big proponent of the hopium texts or sorry, tweets or videos that continue to talk about the same thing. I think right now, especially those of us who are focused on the non-meme coin stuff, like a pulsechain or a pulsechain, we're simply in stasis right now, waiting for it to launch. And then I understand that a lot of people want those funds right away. They want things to be launched as soon as possible. My take on this has always been that I don't intend to cash this out until the opportune moment. And I don't think that opportune moment is anytime soon. We're going to see some peaks and troughs. Of course we will. And of course, there may be some obvious times to take a little bit of profit. But for the main returns, the simplified strategy is just to forget about it until the bull market rolls around. I know that's not what a lot of you want to hear, but essentially it's not going to matter. The initial peaks and troughs that we've seen notoriously with some real popular core cryptos in the past have always been outshone by the later huge peaks and troughs that we've seen. And so don't act too much. Don't put yourself into too much of a trading mentality where you're in a situation where you've traded yourself out of your position because you're impatient. Easy to say, I know. And when it comes to acting accordingly, that seems to be where a lot of people seem to drop the bag. And those people who do stay, fully patient and convicted and don't take out too much profit along the way until it looks like the opportune moment to do so, are always the ones that, in hindsight, spout back at us, time in the market versus timing the market. And it couldn't be more true. I've learned my lessons. I've cashed out so early and so many things that have gone on to do fantastically that I'm not making the same mistake now. I can just tell you that. There are only so many opportunities we're going to have like this, and getting out prematurely, regardless of how impatient you are, is not necessarily going to give you the certain types of bag size you're going to need to even concern yourself with protecting yourself geographically and making sure that you have all your relationships with the banking institutions lined up, because you won't have enough money that actually means anything to you. For those of you who are looking to capitalize fully, it's going to take a bit more of a patient hand. Paper hands are not going to make the big money here. But also what comes with that, as you start seeing your bags really growing as time goes on, that's when your mindset will start to shift. That's when you'll start being a lot more accepting when it comes to just the possibilities and the opportunities ahead of you. And that in itself will then prepare you better to be more patient, to wait until the opportune moment, and then not panic and shit the bed when you do turn that into a stable coin, however else you're looking to invest that. You want to make sure you're prepared mentally. And so I hope this video is helping kind of set the right mindset there. Again, this is a one and done video. I understand I'm being a little bit redundant here in some of the stuff that I'm saying, but I do think it's an important topic to touch on. Stay tuned. More to come. Let me know in the comments too if this is helpful. I want to make sure that I'm talking about content that is actually interesting to you guys. I know a lot of people seem to be only crypto focused, and that's totally fine. Maybe there's another channel I can start that talks about some of this other stuff, some of the offshore opportunities or banking opportunities. But I really am trying to keep a focus on the synergy between real world finance and crypto, because they're getting ever closer. And I think that there is a certain gray area there that we have to be knowledgeable about, that's going to open up various opportunities for us, as well as allow us to really capitalize in how we obtain value. There we go. Thank you, guys. I will be back very soon. I appreciate you watching.